right, we are streaming to YouTube. Ready when you are, Chair Drop.
Okay, we'll call the Board of Commerce Advisory Board meeting January 21st to order. I ask everyone to silence their cell phones. And Tony, could I get you to lead us in pledge?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Can the clerk call the roll, please?
Roll call for today's meeting. Scudder is excused. Regis? Here. Atwood?
Here.
Groom?
Here.
And Chair Jaffa.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Just barely. So we have an agenda with several items on it, including the consent agenda, which will be the approval of the minutes from last meeting. Is there any changes, corrections, or additions?
Citizen comments first.
Where are we at? Oh, number 4. Wow, Bruce. Yeah, I'll open the floor up for citizen comments. We have, I think, mostly business folks that are with us today. Okay, no comments? So then we'll go to the approval of the agenda. Any changes or additions? Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the agenda, consent agenda.
And a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor? You want to signify the sign of aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the consent agenda or the agenda is approved. No proclamations. The city manager's report, I asked Ashley to present that. It's in your packet if you had a chance to review it. This is something that has grown in content and presentation, so.
Yeah, sure. So the major things that are to be highlighted from the city manager newsletter is that with recent cold temperatures, I'm just going to echo what the city manager spoke about at the last council meeting. There's an increase in chance in frozen pipes. So your homes or businesses, if you're not going to be there, please keep the water running at the size of a number 2 pencil. And then another addition that I think is important to highlight is just to thank everyone. In the city manager report, under the harbor specifically, the harbor master mentioned thanks to council members and committee members, and so I just want to echo that as well. Thank you for your service.
Okay. At the last council meeting, the clerk was able to present easy links to all the manager's report and other reports, and it is very usable, and I recommend anybody who cannot attend meetings to take advantage of that, learn what's going on in the city. Okay, so let's see. We have the Alaska Railroad report. Board Member Atwood, if you could present what's going on over there.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have a project going on. So currently, the cruise dock replacement, the demolition of the cruise dock is, I don't know, I would estimate maybe 50%. And the current plan is to have it entirely removed in March. And the terminal building, there's, I guess, including the demolition crew and others, I think there's about 10 contractors, some 40 workers doing various things. We do have, much of the terminal building is framed in, and we're going to, begin covering the luggage barn side, the eastern side of the structure soon. And I'm still planning on an April move-in. So I'm not sure if everyone here is aware, but the dock office was moved to the former coal facility office building. And so that's where we've been operating from. That's kind of immediately west along the old coal conveyor system. And anyway, we're moving forward. We've got a lot of things on our plate, everything from, logistical operations involving, motor coaches and the movement of passengers and things that we're going to be doing somewhat differently. And but so far, everything appears to be on schedule. I'm hearing that, removal of the pilings for the cruise dock seems to be going slow, but it's actually going somewhat better than planned, which of course provides us some information that when we begin putting piles in, it should also go well. But anyway, that's a general overview, and if anybody has any questions, I'll take them.
Okay. Okay, I had a couple. You said 40 contractors.
40 individuals.
40 individuals,
Probably
sorry.
about 10 contractors on site.
Are they responsible for all the hiring? I know board member Regis has provided some whale watch activity, that sort of thing. Are those through the contractors, or is the railroad direct hired any of that?
Yeah, I don't believe the railroad's directly hiring anyone. And then also, the marine observers, that's, while we've noticed that activity on our property, I am actually not aware how many observers there are. How big is that crew, Norm?
We have a crew of 8.
Wow.
And then when they get to the bigger piling, then everybody will be used. There's a couple of backups right now, a couple of just went on a little vacation. But when they drive the big 6-foot and 48-inch piling, again, we have to do observing, and now they're doing dredging, so that's 24/7. We have observing 24/7. At night, we're looking for mostly sea otters by the dredge.
Mostly for what?
Sea otters by the dredge, but they light up the area that within the NOAA's guidelines for us to keep an eye out for sea otters.
I'd be a little curious as, an observer of the bay. Are there any discoveries? I mean, are we getting any marine mammals further up the bay than we would have expected?
So, last week, week before, we had 2 positive orcas come through. But they didn't get close enough to shut the project down. They actually turned around prior, and then the other pod was across the bay. But we were monitoring over there when we spotted them, but they didn't get close enough to shut down the project.
They're smarter than the average bear, huh?
But they shut down until they're out of sight, and then we have to wait an additional half hour, so.
Amazing. Fantastic project. All right, thank you. Any other questions? I had one more. Does the railroad expect to have a fairly robust year as far as oil field work? The sand and piling over the last couple of years was big. I've seen that. I haven't seen a lot of activity there.
Yeah, so to answer your question, there's a lot of planning for gas line. And so if that becomes a reality, there'll be a lot of movement. That's what I can say, and I wouldn't expect anything to happen before the third quarter of '26, but that's kind of the ball we have our eyes on right now.
Right around the corner. Okay, next topic would be the chamber report.
Hi, Amanda here, Director at the Chamber of Commerce and Visitor Center Bureau, and sorry there isn't a printed report in the report. It was our first weekend doing polar bear jump, and so we kind of got caught up in that, but the polar bear jump went really well. Weather considering, obviously Friday the roads were pretty rough, and we did get some confirmation that people did turn around. But still, we had 16 teams of jumpers with 62 individuals jumping, and the jump itself raised over $215,000 for the American Cancer Association, which is great. And then events surrounding the jump, like the auction, Sports Rec did the Polar Bear Carnival, Frozen Cactus did frozen hair decoration, which was very adorable, raised over $5,000 for Kitty's Handprint, which is a grant program that will directly give financial aid to families on the Kenai Peninsula who have children that are dealing with cancer. Also, thank you to the city, to SBAC and the fire department and the police department for making sure the parade was safe and the jump was safe. And of course, special shout out to Harbor Master Tony. We couldn't have done it without him and his team. They really helped us because this was all our first jump and none of us had attended a jump prior. And so, yeah, they put out steps and signage and really walked us through the whole process, and it was really amazing and easy, mostly thanks to the Harbor Master team. And then just warning, Valentine's Winter Weekend is coming up. It's going to be February 13th through the 15th. If you have a Valentine's themed special event or sale for your business, please go ahead and email communications@sewer.com. Flyers and social promotions are going to go out February 9th, so send that in before February 9th. And that's it. Am I allowed to ask for questions, or?
Absolutely.
Yeah, questions, comments, sassy remarks? Yeah.
Jessica?
What was the Valentine weekend again? What were the dates?
Oh, yeah, it was February 13th through the 15th.
So I'm going to kind of put you on the spot just a little bit.
Great.
The economic benefits for an activity like the Polar Bear Jump, I mean, it's relatively easy to say this is how much money we raised and immediate sales. It's a little harder to determine the benefit to the entire town.
Yeah, kind of. There's something like, especially like in tourism, there's something called the halo effect. Like per se, like the cruise ship dock, we accepted the cruise ship dock, and because of that, we got the shore power, and because of the shore power, we got the EPA grant, and because of the EPA grant, we now have a backup for utility system, and the city will be receiving money. So like, it's not just direct tourist dollars into business owners' pockets, there's like the greater halo effect. So for the Polar Bear weekend, obviously there was a ton of people in town. I mean, there's 65 jumpers, but each jumper needs to have a dock buddy, and then they also bring their families, and so you know, that's a bunch of people who stayed at the Breeze, local B&Bs, purchased dinner, went to bars, you know, so even though it's just the jump itself and it's raising money just for cancer, it does bring economic development and visitation, especially during winter months. And then also it's a great sewer tradition. It's a really great cause, and yeah, it's all weekend, so which is great. We have Friday and Saturday and Sunday events, so.
So I didn't mean to suggest that I had any concern with how the...
Oh, no, not at all.
But I think it's important, number one, I support humanitarian activities.
Of course.
Number one.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily judged on the same economic scale as for-profit business, but we're still stewards of the city's money, and the chamber is in cooperative agreement with the city to promote a lot of things. So you mentioned the harbor master and other city entities that had to support this. Is there any general idea on what this economic balloon looks like around, say, for instance, that activity? I mean, is this you said you raised $200,000. Is this a $700,000 balloon around this activity?
Oh, I mean, definitely not on our behalf. It's definitely like an event where the chamber probably takes a loss, I would say. But we are just in charge of ordering T-shirts. Businesses donate all auction items. And then just staff hours that we pour into the project as well. Pins, we order pins and stickers, and that's financially we take care of as well. Then Harbor, I can't speak to Harbor Master Tony how many hours he puts into the project, but, so I don't know what his costs are on his end.
That's a really hard number to quantify, because it depends, there's a lot of factors that go into that, but we're happy to help out in whatever capacity
Of course.
we can.
It's just like putting up the lights at Christmas time. I understand. But Dorothy Erbach, for instance, would say, on this weekend, she had 10 extra people come into her store.
Right.
And that would equal $1,000 worth of sales.
Right.
So there are opportunities to get a look at that, and I don't think we should ever not consider that. I mean, that's, even though we love the summer salmon festival and all this other stuff, it's an economic driver that the city uses to spread out their economic base.
Right. And to, like when I say we buy t-shirts and pins and stickers and stuff, that money comes from the American Cancer Association. So besides staff hours and obviously the time and dedication it takes to do all the community events, I don't know. I think community members wouldn't be too upset about some tax dollars going towards this, but
Next time.
yeah, next time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one other question. Do you, the chamber liaises with the Kenai Economic Development?
KPED?
What's going on in their world as far as East Peninsula?
I mean, their economic overview seminar that they do every year is actually taking place in Seward. So we're working with them to help them find a big enough space to host it, which is obviously a challenge here in Seward, especially it'll be in early April. So a lot of the bigger spaces are still going to be closed. That's pretty much it that I have from KPED. I talked to Cassie a lot. We've been talking about like the housing and obviously early education has been a big economic driver on the Kenai Peninsula. There's been talks about how we put forth those ordinances and those pass, and the idea that other towns are also doing that, and then KPED can back it up to the Kenai Peninsula Borough to make it an economic driver. But they're working on the reports that they will publish in April, so I will have more information and update in April. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Well, thank you. Didn't mean to extend that out, but...
No, it's great. I like conversation.
Excellent. Okay. All right. So, next item of business would be on presentations. This is sort of an old new topic on heat pumps. So we have Phil Calusa is going to present an update on a potential heat pump incentive program. We'll have a question and answer after that, and then later in the agenda, we will take up a topic of heat pump incentive resolution, and don't expect any of this to get finished today. But just a little bit of history, we've been dealing with this for a long time. I went back through the record here, and I'm telling you, maybe 5 or 6 years worth of discussion on this, actually. It's still a good idea. It's actually gotten to be, well, we'll let Phil present first, and then we'll decide how good an idea it is.
Phil Calusa. Thanks again for the opportunity to spend a few minutes on my favorite project. It's just something that I've been kind of working on for many years now. I thought what I'd do is just do some quick slides and some bullets. I gave you some of my written stuff, which is much better than how I can speak. I think my brain and lips don't sync as well as they used to when I was younger, but so please keep that in mind. I guess just to get going, the whole purpose of heat pumps, we certainly proven they work. The idea is to lower the cost for year-round residents. I mean, there's no reason we can't be saving 20 to 30% of our heating costs in this town with heat pumps. That's a big number if you add up all the residents and small businesses in the community. Utilities get to sell more power, increase sales and some revenue. And in your packet, I kind of showed where more money stays in the community. Every dollar that we keep in the community gets turned over and then, increases in value. So it's a benefit to the community, to the ratepayers, and to the utilities. And I'm proposing something as simple as I could possibly come up with. as I've looked at dozens and dozens of rate studies and stuff, looking at heat pumps, simple is just good. I've just spent too much time in rural communities knowing that there's a big advantage. So just a couple quick slides on heat pumps. The difference between a heat pump and an oil boiler is heat pumps don't really generate heat. They just move it. And we're able to actually move heat, be it whether it's from the ground or the air or the water. We're just moving it from one place to another. Pretty much exactly how your refrigerator works in your home. It's basically pulling heat out from inside the refrigerator and dumping it to those coils in the back. So that's the big difference. But there is no free lunch. So here's an example where we can put a kilowatt of electricity into that heat pump compressor, and it's able to pull 1.5 kilowatts of heat out of that cold outdoor air. And so in effect, for every kilowatt of electricity we put into that heat pump, we're getting 2.5 kilowatts of heat into the house. And one term that's very common that you'll see is that COP, coefficient of performance. That's really how much better is the heat pump than just burning straight electricity. That's my quick deal on that. So why now? This is what I've been kind of excited about for the last year or two. The ACES program, it's run by HeatSmart down in Juneau, and the Southeast Conference basically got this $38 million grant, and they appropriated, budgeted, I guess is the term, about $1.6 million, equal to 200 to 300 heat pumps in Seward. But the problem is they, their goal is to save money to the consumers. So if we don't have a rate that's appropriate to save money, that money that was allocated towards Seward would most likely go somewhere else. My idea was a simple declining block rate. We pick a number, something like the first 600 kilowatts, which is kind of about what the average kilowatt hour usage is for residential users. And when we reach that 600 kilowatts, that essentially is sort of the break-even for the utilities. They've made their share of money. If everybody used 600, a little bit over, the utilities would meet their budget requirements. So I used that as my number. I guess I rounded it down to 600 from 620 or whatever the actual average is between summer and winter, to help benefit the lower income, smaller users a little bit. But the whole goal is to come up with a rate that's cost effective for people to really want to put in heat pumps, because it's a win for everyone that we can show. Eligibility, right now, I'm going, let's just see if we can get a residential program going, and then we can expand from there. The idea of a declining block rate is we don't need extra metering or complex billing requirements. So one example, and again, these are just examples. The price of oil changes, the price of electricity changes, so just kind of keep that in mind. We're finding that average, a single heat pump can save 400 to 500 gallons of oil per year in a household. And they use 12 to 14 kilowatts to produce the same amount of heat that you would get out of a gallon of number 1 heating oil. The lower number 12 is the more efficient small heat pumps. 14 kilowatts is more of the larger ones that we're finding. They're improving in efficiency a little bit, so we can see that efficiency gain somewhat over the next few years. But that equals $300 to $500 per year, which for lower and moderate income folks is a big number. So the big issue is, how do you get people to put in heat pumps? I've spent pretty much 50 years promoting energy efficiency in my career. And as much as I can preach health and safety and comfort and everything, the bottom line comes down to economics. And what does it take to get somebody to spend their hard-earned money to invest in a heat pump? And it really gets down to the final question of that discussion is, what's my payback? Is this going to be worthwhile? And so my target was, when I was playing with numbers, was that 4 to 7 years is really a pretty good number for moderate income folks. Lower income people, it's tough no matter what the price is. So we got to keep that in mind. For the utility economics, I'm still looking at trying to make sure there's some margin, some profit, for the utilities, so they can claim some benefit for every heat pump that goes in. And in my calculations, we're looking at $300 to $400 of additional revenue per heat pump. Now, if we don't put in any heat pumps, nobody gets any revenue, nobody gets any savings. And again, the idea of coming up with a declining block rate is we really don't have to invest any money into the project. We don't really have any sunk costs. If the price of heating oil drops 50%, it's pretty tough for heat pumps to ever compete. If the price of oil doubles, we don't really need an incentive. It's going to be built into that. But right now, we're kind of into that gray area. So each heat pump that we install helps spread the fixed costs that the utility needs to generate to keep the lights on. So one of the big terms that you hear in utilities is marginal cost, and how that associates with heat pump rates. So when you think of marginal cost, it's really the cost of supplying that next kilowatt of electricity. So if you're using your 600 kilowatts of electricity, what does it actually cost the utility to give you 601 kilowatts? You've already paid for your pole and your share of the transformer and the wire and the meter. So the actual marginal cost of that next kilowatt really is, can be substantially less than what your average cost is. Again, most utilities' costs are fixed. It's all managing their utility. So the idea of a heat pump is we're really using all the existing infrastructure that we have in place. The break-even rate, and I notice in my readings, the utilities, I call them that non-negative marginal cost. That's really how low can we offer a rate where the utility doesn't lose any money? So that'll be interesting when we do the rate study and have the utilities, find out what is their non-negative marginal cost, because then we can actually work from there to see what we can do. So if the incentive price is greater than the marginal cost, the utility does not lose money, and I hope we can show that the utilities can actually still make some money. So decline block rates, aligning price with marginal cost. The idea is that the cost of that power that you use declines as you increase your usage. And it reflects the marginal cost of every additional kilowatt that you purchase, and the utility actually costs the utility a little bit less. And this really lines up with that cost cause or cost payer principle that rate study people talk about a lot. We already use this whole decline block rate process for large general commercial. You'll see it once in their rates, once they reach a certain level, they get a 5-cent discount in their rates. So it's something we've been doing for many years on the business side of things, and I'm just suggesting we look at doing it for residential as well. We don't do it because, historically it just added some complexity to the rates. It was not economics. And again, the big picture, if we can look at 1,000 heat pumps over the years, Norway's got 70% of their residential homes have heat pumps in them. Now, they didn't do that overnight. They've been at this for 10, 15 years, so I don't expect any of this to happen quickly, but we can get there. So if we look at 1,000 heat pumps, 6.5 million new sales. Brian, our utility manager, mentioned at one of our town hall meetings that the goal of all utilities is to grow the load. Well, this can certainly do it. We can add utility revenue, $500,000 of household savings, keeping the spending local, creates, more jobs, and, always I have to put on the bottom, the environmental benefits are there. So the utility impacts, there is an increase in load. We've done some monitoring and stuff, and we have a pretty good idea of what that does to the utility load and demand cost to Chugach. It's a great load for utilities, 24/7. Peaks at night, early morning when it's the coldest out, complements, our midday peaks. And again, we're using existing utility infrastructure with no added cost. You consider the cost of increasing load by, adding a new subdivision, and it's, very expensive. So this is the one place where, besides using ChatGPT just to clean up my grammar, I said, here, take all these economic numbers, and what does that do to the local economy? And by golly, they found an old University of Alaska Institute of Social Economic Research report that looked at the community benefits of keeping $1 in the community and what that multiplier effect is. And so here you can see where, that I can't quite read that. I couldn't change the fonts on that, but you can see where the household savings and the utility savings occur. We're going to lose some, value in oil by doing these 1,000 heat pumps, but it's relatively small impact to the community. And the very far right bar is the total of impact to the community. And this is in your packet, so you'll be able to read some of those fine points. Again, general numbers, if you look up the table up on top, there's ranges. It all depends. Why decline block rates work? Simple. No income verification or metering required. It's fair, covers, the first 600 kilowatts covers the utility fixed costs. And it's flexible. We can change this annually, whatever we need to do to keep it fair and reasonable. The sewer 2021 rate study recommended we investigate this, and we are. Homer Electric, Marathon Oil basically said, hey, look, you got to give us a rate that's going to work for us, otherwise we're going to self-generate. Homer said, okay, give us 2 cents over our costs and we'll be happy, because 2 cents is on millions of kilowatts was a whole lot better than nothing, which is kind of true of heat pumps. If we don't install heat pumps, nobody wins. The Inside Passage Electric Co-ops recently adopted a heat pump rate. I haven't been able to find it on their line yet. Again, that ACES rebate program, God, I hope we don't miss out on that. Massachusetts utilities were required by their regulatory commission to say, hey, you've got excess capacity in the winter, let's use it on heat pumps. And here's the report done by Alaska Center on Energy and Power for the CAPE study. Far more complicated. They've got PCE caps, they've got some limited excess hydro to work with, but that's what actually got them going to put together a heat pump incentive rate. Massachusetts ordered their electric utilities to come up with a winter rate for heat pumps, and those are in place. So again, I'm looking at this pilot program that we can get going as soon as possible and get involved. But we got a lot of other work to do. That's almost the easy part, but once we get through there, we got a lot of questions. So do we have a seasonal winter rate for heat pumps, or do we have a year-round rate? Here's kind of a typical graph of a heat pump in Seward, and I don't really have the pointer deal there, but you can kind of look in the summer, there's still load. May, September, do we just do a winter rate or do we do a year-round rate? We've got some work to do, but how can we best encourage heat pump installations? And again, just a little bit more, whether to meter or not meter, Taylor and I have a little disagreement on this. I don't think we need to be installing meters at this point. It's just an added cost that somebody's got to pay for, but we can work on that. So I want to quit there and open it up to questions.
Wow. Nice presentation. Yeah, I think you've gotten practiced over the years. Anybody on the board have a...
Yeah, just a quick question. You might not know the answer to this, but in the example you cited of Norway's penetration, is that something, do you think, that was codified, that like new construction was required to install new?
I think they gave incentives for a lot of that. But, Norway's interesting, they're an oil exporter country, but they do have lots of hydro. So their electric rates are pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
And they basically their economists went, look, we make a lot more money selling this oil than we would burning it versus putting in heat pumps and generating electricity. So, But again, they've been at this for 15 years.
I assume in the first slide that was a picture of an example unit that was installed. And I was thinking about it as you were talking about, cost. What's the lifespan of a unit? What can a consumer expect for?
Well, they've been up and running in other parts of the world for 15 years.
Yeah.
I mean, they made this big transition where, geez, these things will work in cold weather if we just tweak the software and come up with defrost cycles and stuff. So I'm guessing around 12 years. I mean, that compressor can only spin around so many times before it's going to get tired. And then it's going to be a question, do you replace the compressor, or do you listen to the installer going, they're better now.
Yeah.
They're more efficient.
So like other technologies, they're continually improving. Okay. Well, thank you.
Sorry, I'm sure we've talked about this before, but what is the cost to install a heat pump?
I would guess today to put in that single outdoor unit and the single head is probably $4,000, $4,500. And that's going to save you 400 to 500 gallons of oil a year if you're using that much. If you burn a lot of wood, you're not going to save as much oil. But and the bigger units are going to be 8,000, and the really large units for large homes, 12, 15,000. I mean, it just goes up forever. If you want one of those, heating heads in every room, it's a couple $1,000s for each one of those.
And then the program that's out right now, that's just, you buy the pump, you
So
install it.
what's great about that ACES program is they're saying for low-income people, the installer basically puts it in on their dime, and then they submit a bill to these folks, so the lower-income people don't have to come up with a penny.
No, not one penny.
Not one penny, up to $8,500. Now, if they decide they want a bigger unit, they want to do a whole bunch more stuff, they would have to cover that cost above that. For the moderate income folks, I think they're still, that $4,000 I think is covered. The first $4,000 is covered. And for upper income, they gotta do it out of the pocket and submit a refund. But, so right now that program is operating, they're kind of doing a soft start in Juneau and I think Sitka. They're just trying to get all the bugs worked out as they move outside of their hometown where things get a little more complex for them. But we've got installers here. I think Seward's ready to go if we can provide them a savings kind of calculation.
A couple of things. Presentation obviously is designed around encouraging the installation of heat pumps. You included some explanation of why heat pumps are good.
Right.
And resolve that economics winds up being the motivator amongst any other goodness or whatever, economics. And I would say that we've had a couple of heat pumps, 4 that I specifically would refer to for 15 years, and we probably have had $1,000 worth of maintenance on them in 15 years. And those are mini splits, air conditioning and heat. But, so there are lots of economic pictures out there to justify this. The benefit of the declining block rate is it's simple. And when you said soft start, you mentioned a couple communities in Southeast that were using a soft start. What did you mean by that?
No, I guess for the program, they're basically saying, okay, we got all this money, they got to take it away several times and got to put back in, through the whole.
You're referring to the ACES?
The ACES program, the funding for this.
And is that different than this $36 million?
No, that's same. Same.
Okay. And that program is still active?
Yep.
So, they're not necessarily tied together. The declining block rate demonstrates that the community or the users would have an advantage, and then the user has to go out and make this application for funding.
So
they're not tied together at all.
I guess I'm not quite sure. So the homeowner.
Yeah, well, the block rate is through the utility.
Right.
The utility doesn't have anything to do with.
No. So that ACES program, they'll have people come to town and I think you can actually fill out an application right now online. And so it's going to be a question of getting the word out, especially for the lower income folks, because if we can't get heat pumps in their homes now, the economics are going to be just brutal down the road. So, and then they'll come with an assessor basically to do a quick audit on your house just to confirm, that would be a good place, this is the size we want to put in. And then you can go out and actually get bids from different installers, and they will, that are approved for the program, they'll come and install the heat pump for you.
So if we're successful with a rate adjustment.
For the economics, to make the economics work,
Who popularizes or presents the general public this program? Where does that come from?
Well, some will be coming from the program itself, but obviously the more the community can contribute to get.
And it could be the utility, could be this board.
Absolutely, yeah, I mean, it's everybody's benefit, and I will certainly be an advocate.
Board Member Groom?
How many installers are in town?
We had 2 for a while, and I'm not sure about the second one. I know Darian's still in town.
He's solid, growing.
So, 1, maybe 2.
Yeah.
And there are people in the peninsula that do this as well.
And geez, we got a refrigeration class, that Darian went through. We got AvTech here. We could be cranking out another half a dozen in a season.
Board Member Atwood?
No, I think that's a good point. This last point about vocational training in the field, it makes sense.
Okay.
All right.
Any other questions? Regis.
Yeah, so I was just kind of curious about, electric here, and I know that he said conversation about something you weren't, about how much the metering, that was an issue. You don't think it's an issue, and he apparently does?
Well,
You said that, so
question of what's fair, it's a fairness question.
I know they're working on getting new meters and things like that right now, so
it
might be a
becomes a question, do we want to put in a separate meter or sub-meter for each heat pump that goes in?
So then the public would bear the cost of that?
Somebody's got to pay it.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Right, whether it's, if we take it out of the homeowner, that's a disincentive for us to promote heat pumps. And so it's really, how do we keep the incentive as high as possible to get as many people? To me, to put in meters, right now, I have 2 heat pumps, 1 on each side of the house. So it would cost me thousands of dollars to somehow wire those all together, or I got to put in 2 separate meters. and I got an EV that, hopefully we'll be able to address that as well. So, I mean, there's a lot of small issues that we still have to contend with, but if we don't come up with a rate, there's no reason to even worry about the little issues.
So, one other question, and I don't know if the the electric manager wants to join the conversation here. We're going to talk about a resolution later, but is there any reason in your mind, Phil, that if you had a declining block rate and you still then had separate metering for that they're incompatible? Is there any reason to?
No, it's really just a cost issue. I mean, you're just.
Well, there's no cost for the block thing except a signature on a paper somewhere.
That's right, and the building people are gonna have to put in that separate and that other line that says, all right, your first 600 kilowatts is this much, and whatever you use beyond 600 is gonna be at a slightly different rate.
And because we are a local utility, not a regulated utility, that could be done relatively easily.
Right, that's a resolution by the council.
Or omitted later, or rescinded, whatever.
That's right, and after a year of gathering data, we may go, you know what, there's so many outliers that we need to get some meters in, maybe for all of them, or some of them, or, I mean, I guess my feeling is let's roll with it for a little bit, and if we decide down the road we gotta add meters, let's add meters. But if we don't need meters, we just spent a whole lot of money.
Personally, I think we're on separate topics. I don't know that one negates the other, frankly.
No, it's just an incentive. Somebody's got to pay for the meters.
Well, I understand.
Is that benefiting? Because, I mean, when I look at somebody that's only using, say, 450 kilowatts and they put in a heat pump, they're going to actually have to pay the full price. We're only talking like 6 cents a kilowatt. We're not like giving this, power away still. So the little guy may actually end up paying an extra $10 a month more than they would have to if they had a meter. Well, for $10 a month, are we going to justify putting in an $800 meter and all the extra reading and billing and stuff? I mean, that's where I get lost in the economics.
I don't think that's going to be part of this particular discussion, frankly. Maybe during a rate study, but.
And, I think the rate study is going to tell us, what their bottom line is. Then, I think all the community leaders got to put on their marketing hats and go, okay, we got a rate that can work. Now, how do we make all of this work out? What's it going to take to get your neighbor to put in a heat pump? Because everyone that puts one in benefits everyone.
Okay. All right, any other questions?
I'll give you a hard one.
Okay. No, thank you. I think it's a topic that.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Okay. So in our agenda, we have no unfinished business. Under new business, we have 3 items. We'll need to move towards 1 o'clock and decide what the group wants to do, but the discussion, item 1 is discussion of the draft resolution supporting a residential heat pump. Is it normal to have the clerk read that? Or for discussion purposes?
For discussion purposes, I don't think we need to be super formal about it. We can just want to have a discussion.
Do we need to introduce it? This was sponsored by myself and Melissa Sutter. And Board Member Sutter could not be here today, but she did, in fact, we did talk on the phone, and she did offer to put this, to sponsor this so that we can get this on the table. Now, I don't know, do we need a resolution at all, Chris? I mean, the topic is discuss. Discussion item, so it's not, at this point, an actual resolution.
That was my understanding,
Okay.
that it was still a work in progress.
Yep.
And then when you finalize the draft, it could be approved and then moved on to council.
Okay, so what this is an attempt to move forward a long-standing discussion item that we have had on PACAB. PACAB has been, as you know, has a very broad mandate, which includes alternate energy, and we used to spend a lot more time on that. When we come back to alternate and renewables, when we come back to legislative priorities, we may talk about that some more, but for now, I hope you've taken a chance to read through this, and this resolution is mostly put together with the help of Phil Calusa. It is, in fact, very much in line with the presentation that we just got. The justifications in the presentation apply to this, and the benefit to the community is something that we as a board would study and agree and eventually move forward to council and say this has a benefit. I don't think there's anything in here that you couldn't just line out. If you look through the packet, there's some yellow marks. Unfortunately, when I sent this forward to the clerk, I put this highlighting in there and didn't get it out. But at that point, I was not sure whether the program had expired. That's the ACES program. But it hasn't, as we just heard. And when we first heard about this as much as a year ago, things were still kind of in flux. Taylor and Brian had just gotten their feet into the utility. Utility was really in drift. So this was an idea to try to move things forward in the interim. Since then, we're a lot more solid ground. Doesn't make this any less valid. So, Board of Regis, work in, please.
So I was, reading all the whereases and stuff, so one that jumps right out to me, of course, you just took care of, would get rid of that red, program's been expired. But the fifth whereas, I know they're going out for current rate study, correct? So, it's gonna, we know it's gonna go up, so.
No, we don't.
Okay. We don't know if it's gonna go up or down, so I'm just saying, it says Seward's current electric rate study, we should, I don't know, wait until after the rate study? I'm just throwing that out there.
Good question.
Because we don't know what it's gonna be. Currently it doesn't work for this project, but, if it does, say it does go up, then what's gonna change in the rate structure thing?
Okay.
That's my.
No, you're absolutely right. I would speak to that. The rate study is justified because the previous one by Bob Hubbard or Mike Hubbard or whatever like that had a lot of suspect. And a lot of us objected to the way that was orchestrated and implemented. The new one, which is by a much more independent, apparently more prestigious group, I think will certainly benefit the community. In my opinion, and I agree with you, it's nice to have everything ready to go, but this is kind of kicking the can down the road further and further on this. And some of my questions to Phil was that, would there be harm in this, if this moved forward quickly, and I don't think it will, if this moved forward really quickly and then the rate study came along, is there anything that the rate study couldn't uncover that would change this? Well, it could. It could. I'm not sure exactly when we'll see this rate study. I would guess by May. Does that sound right?
Probably June.
June. It would really not be nice. We're going to have a hiatus at the end of May. In my opinion, Barbara Regis, is if we could have this board make a recommendation and have it available, and it could be implemented in coordination with the rate study to council. The council could blend any recommendation into whatever they ultimately do.
So I know we're going in hiatus, but it was also in there too that we can also schedule a meeting
I'm ready for that.
in June or July.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right after the rate study. We can come back in July and say, okay, here's the rate study, this is what it can be, then we get the final numbers. But that's a thing that might happen, but to throw something out there now when the rate study's gonna maybe, or maybe not, throw a wrench in it. That's all I'm saying.
Is it possible to get the electrical departments?
Sure, yeah, we'd like, Taylor, could you, let's suspend the regular order. We're actually in a discussion, so is that open for,
Sounds good to me, if you want
Yeah.
to invite Mr.
And,
Crocker.
and, you know, I would say, as much as I would like to slow this down and seemingly put everything step by step by step, in my mind, I don't see that we're getting that far, we're not tipping over that far to have this in place ahead of the rate study. But we can debate that. Yep. Taylor, what can you tell us about the rate study and how might this declining block rate impact if it was either initiated or proposed? How would it affect the rate study? The study itself?
Yeah, it would just, it would just add another factor to the study, but I do want to point out that the heat pump rate is actually part of the study. So in the past year or so, we've increased efficiencies in the electric department, and we're working on a new accounting system and streamlining our billing and, auditing commercial accounts. So anyway, there's all these cost-saving measures that we've kind of kicked off last year, but we're, executing on this year. And so I honestly think like the revenue requirements of the utility are going to decline. And so that's the main focus, but it's also to bring in a rate study. Now, I agree with, Phil on 99% of the heat pump stuff. And so I want to get the heat pumps, like this project started in town because it does, increased load, which is both good for us and Chugach Electric. It's selling us power. It's actually good for the whole rail belt. Seward would be the first utility on the entire rail belt to have a heat pump incentive rate. So Homer has a rebate program. I believe it's like $5,500 or something.
1,000, I think, 500 to the home, 500 to the installer.
Sure, but we would be the first ones on the rail belt to come up with this rate, which is going to create like a ripple effect, I believe. And I was at Chugach Electric probably in 2015 or something. We had the special group put together to figure out how to increase our load, because everyone was putting the LED lights in, and there was large general accounts that were shutting down. And so I was trying to talk them into air conditioning. It gets hot, and no one in Alaska seems to have air conditioning in Anchorage and the valley. But anyway, coming out of that group, we ended up standing up a energy conservation group. Instead of figuring out a way to increase our load, we actually, created a position to decrease the load, which is also good for your members to learn how to be efficient and everything. But this heat pump thing is kind of like the same idea as the air conditioner. In fact, you could probably run them as air conditioner in the summertime. But this would be like our greatest opportunity for growth. Now, I'm also working with a heat pump manufacturer on a prototype. We're hoping to put it at one of the local, the commercial nonprofits if we get this in. But what they were telling me is, other than like, this is kind of like going back to that subtract meter. If we had the subtract meter, we could get the data that's just coming from the heat pumps to get back to the heat pump manufacturers and get to, is it ASAP up in Fairbanks and all these people to show them like what we're doing with our, lower heat pump rate and how it's increasing our system load. And with the AMI meters, we'll be able to see exactly on a 5-minute interval kind of what that data is looking like. And so that would also be like a good, group of data to send up to the university or whatnot and show them like how the heat pumps are, affecting our grid, but also, taking people off of oil or, whatever talking point you want.
Excuse me just a second. I'll poll the board. Does anybody have an immediate need to leave at 1? Okay, thank you.
So anyway, like what we put in the rate study to look at is a heat pump rate of 5 cents, then plus COPA. So you'd be around, 17 or 18 cents a kilowatt hour. And then
as compared to what?
Well, right now we're at about 25.5 cents in the winter. which my goal is to actually be cheaper than Chugach South coming out of this rate study. But anyway, so the heat pump rate that's going in the rate study is 5 cents to the utility and sewer, then you pay COPA, and then a $600 credit for installing the subtract meter socket, which is not a whole new meter base, it's just a meter socket. So your power from the utility flows through your main meter, and then you jumper that out through your subtract meter, and then you just have the heat pump on the subtract meter. Now, I do personally, walking away from work, I like the idea of the block rate. Now, Cordova has a block rate, but Cordova also has hydro, which hopefully we'll have soon. We just kicked off our meeting with RESPEC yesterday. So in Cordova, the first 750 kilowatt hours, I believe, are about 23 cents. And then everyone in town, whether you have a heat pump or not, drops to 6 cents. And that's 2 cents over their generation rate when they're running hydro. Now, in January and February, if you live in Cordova, you also have a fuel surcharge. So when the hydro slows down in those months where the creeks aren't flowing, you also have to pay the diesel bill for the EMDs and CAT 3516s when they're running. So unfortunately in Cordova in January and February, they have a much higher electric bill than they have the rest of the year.
Do they spread their bill out over the year? Are you able to do that?
I think they spread it out. Their COPA for the fuel surcharge is like a quarterly.
No, I mean to the ratepayer. Can he pay that in increments through the year, or is he socked with a high bill in January and February?
You know, I haven't dug into it that deep, but I think their COPA adjustments are quarterly rather than how ours is monthly when we get our bills from Chugach. But, you know, so if we go with the declining, rate, version of this, there'll be a heat pump on my house on day one, because I've got a hot tub that's not being used right now. So I'm just kind of wondering, how many people in this community there's certain community members that I've had a Boomerang. It's a voltage tracking device behind a meter, just when we're trying to troubleshoot a high electric bill, and there's a couple heat pumps, EV running, hot tub, all the stuff is going on at the house. And so my main goal is just to make this fair and equitable. Now, if we wanted to go with the declining block rate, maybe we figure out a way to get that declining block rate just across the board to everyone. Because maybe you haven't installed a hot tub just because your electric bill would be too high, so that's keeping you from putting one of those in. Or your EV charger, you haven't put an EV charger in, so you're going down to the Chamber of Commerce to plug in or something, and maybe there's other increases in our load that we're just not thinking about. But we could study all that kind of stuff in this rate study and figure out what would be the best from a fair and equitable standpoint. Now, if we wanted to bring this to council as a temporary fix to the problem to get us through until we have the rate study, I don't think with the amount of heat pumps that we have right now that would be a huge factor moving forward. But I have been talking to Darian, and he said that he thinks he's got 200 of these grant-based heat pumps that would be installed if we had a rate. So that's something to consider. But I'd hate to get people on this experimental rate, and then all of a sudden we get through the rate study and they're like, hey, pump the brakes on this isn't fair and equitable or something, and then we have to change it, and then everyone's upset. So I mean, if we went this route, it'd probably be a good place to start, but we just want everyone to know that it's experimental and that we need to make sure that all of our rates are in line with one another.
Well, I think your point's well taken, and if you look at the second portion of this draft resolution, it really has a whole lot to do with the opportunity to capitalize on this ACES program. Any rate study that comes back to council is going to be a while before it's implemented. If it is implemented, then I suppose we could, if the ACES program is still available, we can return and using that as justification. But a point you mentioned about, and we've talked about this, is the abuse that people would have of declining block rates to power other things than what we're intending. There's always going to be abuse. I personally believe that the majority of people are well-intended and they're not going to abuse it. majority of people, but there's always going to be abuse. So I don't personally think we should set policy around the abusers, but possibly with the subtract meters, that eliminates that problem. And the other thing is setting the rate as close to what's necessary rather than just some number out there that you could push through council. Sorry, council, but that 6 cents was extraordinary. I think would probably be a benefit here. So maybe, like Board Member Regis said, it would be appropriate to pump the brakes a little bit, try to get the rate study to accelerate. This board would certainly like to see that come back to us for review in consultation with the council.
And as far as the block rate goes, I think that would just, be a couple days in the office with North Star, our current billing software. But we are meandering over to this company called PCS, which has a much better platform for utility billing and rate setting. And by August or September, we'll also have the engineering portion of that up and running that has the meter data management program. So you can go in there and you can study all these different rates and how they're, affecting your other rates. And it's going to be a tool that we've never had before. So it'll be much easier to make these kind of decisions, when we're on that. But right now we've got a very primitive tool on our billing side that's somewhat difficult to, set rates in, but it's doable probably within a couple days of work.
Well, as far as timing, Taylor, if you remember in April 16, 2025, you presented setting electric rates to us. So this is not a new topic. I think that you've got so much more data collected in that year that we will benefit, and as long as it can be accelerated, and as long as the city can make decisions quickly and locally, I think this ACES might still be in effect.
I definitely don't want anyone to miss an opportunity with it, that's kind of where I'm at, but we're definitely working as fast as we can to get to that point where we have proper data for the rate study. But with some of the big changes that we're making with the software and the metering and things like that, that all comes back to that rate study. So we're trying to pump the brakes, a little bit. So our Russ Hism, who's running our new rate study, is collecting the data that we have from our kilowatt hour sales and everything like that. But we need to see if by capitalizing work correctly and all these other things, how much that takes off of our bottom line. And so that could be, millions of dollars in savings a year, which is multiple cents on the rates. And, the lower we can get the rates, the more people are going to prosper in town, the easier it is to run a business. So that's that is our goal, but there's some things that have to take place before we can get to that final end of the study to determine what the final rates are going to look like.
Board Member Regis, sorry.
So what he was talking about too, what Cordova's doing, so I went to the 6th whereas, and it says declining block rate structure already exists in Stewart's large commercial customers. It can be readily adapted to support. I put in all residential homes or new infrastructure. That would, that's of course will be part of the rate study again, but.
Yeah, but so large commercial also pays demand rates.
Correct. So so the demand rate is what you're actually reading for the additional cost or the rate, the block rate.
Well, okay, so on the block rate for residential in Cordova, they don't have a demand charge.
Correct.
But the large commercial has lower rates because they pay $26.93 per kilowatt of their peak demand over that billing cycle. So they're not just paying that kilowatt hour charge at the lower rate, they're also paying their highest demand for the month and their power factor.
And the rate study is really important, I think.
Who would be the peak users, the school and the fisheries over there?
The fisheries are their number one customer.
Yeah, okay.
I just comment, I don't think we're really pumping the brakes on this. I think the guy sitting behind me's come a long way. Like Brother, or John said,
Fine.
that they've been talking about this for 5 years. Just to hear that the city is including it now in their rate studies and that this is on everybody's mind and thinking about it, I think it's coming a long way. And I think slowing down until after the rate study is not really slowing down too much. It's just sit back and wait for a minute, see what happens. That's all I have.
I would ask Phil, Mr. Close behind him, during this resolution we have, this draft resolution, is intended to encourage or to positively influence an applicant for this ACES program.
Or at least make them eligible to apply.
Okay, maybe I misunderstood that, because my question would be, would a draft of the rate study that shows that there's probably going to be an improvement in rates for heat pumps be adequate for an applicant to qualify?
I'd suggest getting hold of southeast folks or the Heat Smart folks to ask that question.
Might be worth a
I mean,
question.
Kat, our city manager, talked to them last summer, specifically about the fact that, if you don't have an economic, benefit, we're probably not gonna even come to sewer. So, she knows that. Now, what we need to do to get them to go, fine, we're gonna keep you in, let's keep things rolling, I'd really suggest administration get a hold of them and firm that up.
Maybe that can happen. Okay. All right. Any other questions on this?
Yeah, I'm just looking here at this draft, and there's a whereas referencing the 2021 cost of service and rate study, and it mentions a special rate for electric vehicles. Is that something that would be addressed separately? I realize heat pumps are the topic of the day.
But I think that's coming in the rate study, because he mentioned EVs also as part of the rate study, for discounted folks for EVs, correct?
I mean, I didn't include it because I tried to keep my blinders on. Let's take advantage of this big rebate program. And no, EV should be right in there with the rest of them. And, the same rate's fine. But I was trying to keep it as focused as possible to get it through, because then we can start, adding and adding and adding, and we'll never get to even get the residential one in, so.
We could just add EVs to the same rate,
Yeah.
I mean, my idea of if you own a heat pump and have that block rate, if you own a EV too, well, guess what? That's just gonna be part of that above 600 kilowatt rate, so it's gonna work in there.
Yeah, good.
Okay. Thank you. Discussion. So, our next order of business is a discussion of PACAB meeting topics. And I think I went out of the house without my hair and without some paper this morning. I did ask our administrative assistant Ashley to provide some stuff, which is past records of what we've used, and I really had put that together. I wonder if I emailed it to myself. But one of the things that we have missed is a joint meeting with council, and in December we should have, or November, December, we should have put together a schedule on what we wanted to accomplish, what we wanted to do through 2026, and certainly the first half of 2026. And that would include the things that are part of our mission. Our mission statement is pretty broad. If you've looked at it recently or at all, it talks about things like alternate energy and electrical reviews, talks about commercial development, the port and uplands and other kinds of commercial developments, as well as kind of a broad statement about the quality of life. Norm was in Tony's position when we talked about that several years ago, and that administration, city administration, objected to some degree to that broad mandate, but it was never changed. And I think for good reason, personally. So that would suggest to me that we have a fairly generous opportunity to add something to the public discussion. We don't really have to worry about tie-up rates anymore, because they are part of what they call a CIP. There's an automatic increase where we had to regulate that and look at that every year and decide how many people were waiting on the wait list and how to motivate 66-footers or 16-footers or whatever they were. We don't have to do that anymore. But it doesn't mean that this city doesn't have a lot of other needs for review. The legislative priorities, which have been more or less set now and are going to be taken to Juneau, was an activity that we should keep in our wheelhouse. We should keep a look at what's important for the city of Seward and ask the agencies that make those decisions or are in charge of that to come and talk to us. I don't know that that's necessary in this remaining quarter. Golly, I am so full of shit right now, pardon me, but I had this written out so that I would have it available for you guys to talk about. My recommendations for the next 5 meetings. I'd say my dog ate my lunch, but I'm not going to find it. So what do?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's that one.
It's a chart.
It's a chart.
Yeah, actually, please.
Every PACAB packet.
Yep.
It has a chart, like a calendar in the back of what we were doing.
Yes. Ashley? Help.
It's Kristen, sorry.
I'm sorry, Christian.
And, yeah, we didn't have it in time for the packet, but I think we can open up the floor for discussion for what everyone else would like to do and set that calendar now.
Do you have the topics, even if we didn't get it into the packet? Did I communicate?
I can go look. I don't believe so, but I can go look and see. I can be right back.
Could you please?
Of
Thank you.
course.
Kristen, jeez.
And just thinking out loud for a moment, I mean, that might be the action that we could take as a board, is to reestablish the calendars so that we can keep track of our topics and set a schedule.
It creates a schedule, but it also is something that we want to take to city council. I talked to the mayor recently about joint meetings, and she agreed that had been missed and that she would like to set one up. So having a list of priorities.
So we can ask the clerk, when was P&Z scheduled to meet with council?
So the P&Z joint work session is coming up on January 26th.
So we could maybe push ours to February, because you don't want them to say meeting, correct? You want them,
Correct.
so that'll be a good February meeting.
Agreed.
The joint.
Yep. And how could we get, without having the board meet, how could we exchange ideas on what these things can be? Can we do that through the clerk? Can we personally put in letters to the clerk and have you compile them?
Are we talking about a joint work session idea or just a
Yes.
general list of topics?
No, not the joint work session ideas, the ideas that would be part of the schedule or priorities.
I think just having a discussion item like this is probably the best way to get ideas, and we could
Individually bring them.
we could bring a list to the February meeting based on feedback we get today, just to start.
Then we can vote on it.
It would come out of the joint meeting and come back to us to vote on. So that would be March.
We can bring, yeah.
And I know the mayor has already mentioned, that she would like to have the joint work session with PACAB, so we're gonna get that on the books, hopefully in February or March.
Well, this is what we should have on that, as a topic for that joint work session. So if it's February, that's not that far away.
May I?
Yes, sir.
So, because we're all, I mean, we're gonna be here that evening, we can talk to council about what we expect to be doing, and then they can give us yay or nay, and then we can bring it up to the next meeting and vote on it to put it in their calendar. So if we have suggestions for that night, say, okay, we wanna do, say, tariffs in December or November or something, so they get approved before the next January when you've gotta get them done. Or, things like that, and then, I know there's a whole bunch of subjects on there, I'm just trying to throw some through my head, but they're all just,
Yeah, I know, that's my problem.
yeah.
If a board member's not gonna be at the February meeting, how would they put their ideas forward?
By letter.
By letter? And would they send it to the clerk?
Yeah.
In terms of a joint work session with council, assuming it's 5:30 on a Monday night before the council meeting, does February 9th or February 23rd sound good or bad to everybody?
9th for me, sooner the better.
The 9th would work better for me.
Because we would need a quorum there with PACAB as well. So February 9th?
February 9th is okay with me. I can't believe I did that.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're gonna be gone on the 18th.
I leave on the 10th.
Yeah.
And I'm back on the 13th, and then I leave again on like the 14th or something.
Okay.
So just from my understanding, we will compile topics or in advance of
Yes.
this?
Your ideas.
Okay.
And is there?
Give them to the clerk.
Is there any way that we can share through the clerk?
Well, I could compile your ideas and present it as like a joint work session packet.
No way short of that. I mean, just as a letter, a newsletter saying, here's what some of the other thoughts are.
I mean, we wouldn't typically publish ideas from individual board members. It would have to be more of a collective.
If I write a letter to the clerk to distribute to the board members, does it have to wait for a meeting, or can it be done? I'm just trying to get past this bonehead thing that I did right now, which was not bring this with me.
So that's where the 23rd would come in, because it'd be after our meeting, we can vote on what we're gonna bring to council on the 23rd if we moved it to the 23rd, but I don't think everybody's gonna be here. You're gonna be gone?
I get back on the 23rd, and I don't know what time, might be able to make like an evening meeting.
Yeah, it'd be at 5:30 in the evening, but you missed the other meeting, but
The February PACAB regular meeting would be the 18th.
18th,
correct?
that's when we can vote on something there to bring before council.
If we get a quorum, if we have a
If we have a quorum, correct.
So,
That makes sense.
any help?
So we did not have any other correspondence other than the presentation for today, and I looked through that, and I looked through the last PACAB packet that we had. So the last meeting that took place was a work session. We didn't have quorums for the other meetings, so the last time that we've had a meeting was September 17th, and I printed that out. The last 2 pages didn't print out, but it's just the council calendar. That's the last of the packet. So, and there were no topics on there.
So, Norm, if I could, your suggestion is that we compile our ideas and come to a meeting
On the 18th.
on the 18th.
Then we can vote on our ideas, right?
Yeah.
Clerk, do we have to have, we can vote on what they're in, and then we can have that, because if we vote yes on it, then we can bring that before council on the 23rd.
So this is based on the idea of a joint work session being on the 23rd?
Correct.
Rather than the 9th? Because, so you could have your regular meeting ahead of time?
We can have, I don't know, we got,
But don't we need to have like a meeting with the council? to
We
get
should have a meeting
ideas
with the council.
Before we come to the meeting to vote on them?
Well, no, we're going to vote on our ideas, take it to the council, then they
And they'll
decide
say yea
whether
or
they
nay.
like them or not.
Got it.
It seems to me that we can send our ideas to the administration. The administration can compile this into a format that then we could bring to our meeting. When is the council meeting with the P and Z? That's the 26th?
26th, that's
And when's the next council meeting after that?
February 9th.
so may I make a suggestion
Yeah, yeah.
again? So we don't have to have a meeting on the 18th, we can have it on the 4th. Correct? It says once a month, doesn't say, it says third Sunday, but wasn't there a clause in there that we can adjust it?
Adjust the date
You could call for a special meeting.
There you go.
on the 24th, is that what you want? 4th of what?
The 4th of February. It's before the council meeting on the 9th, if we want to have it on the 9th, we're not going to have enough people for the 23rd.
Yeah, I believe I'll be out of state on the 4th of February.
Well, we'd have to appreciate the checking on our quorum issues, that's been important. Well, this is probably what's going to lead up to my next discussion point. All right, well, why don't we try to set a meeting for the 4th of February? Well, that misses you.
What are your dates, Dwayne?
2nd through the 8th, I'll be out.
I'm available, yeah. It's
Yeah,
the day before.
4th.
I don't know what time you get back into town or if you're even available.
I think we should have a joint session with the council as soon as possible, period. Whether we have this complete or not, and that would be the 9th. And we can get ideas to the administration on what we want to do, what we think our mission, how our time is best spent.
If I could just interject really quick there, Jason, Deputy City Manager Jason Bickling would like to take the February meeting.
See what?
He would like to take the February meeting for a presentation to talk about the South Uplands development.
Deputy City
Jason.
Manager, yeah.
He just communicated with you? Is that what
He has prior to this.
okay, so he would like the February 9th meeting to do this. So
No,
we'll,
not for us, for him.
The next PACAB
The
meeting.
next PACAB meeting. So we will have to check with him and his schedule. So just another,
Right.
I guess I'm misunderstanding.
But if it's a special meeting, we only have one topic to talk
No, we're
about.
talking about the joint session with the council.
Jason would like to take the next PACAB meeting.
Okay, that's, yeah, I got that.
Yeah, I think we're.
So when you send in your,
Yeah, I think.
I just want to get that out there while you guys are still.
He does what with the next council meeting?
No, so Jason wants to give us a presentation about the Uplands Development Project at our meeting.
I think we're getting confused.
Yeah, but
here a little bit.
that's not the same thing.
No, but if you want to take, you were setting your priorities list.
Yes,
Correct.
That would be next session,
that would be perfect, but that's going to be the 19th or something.
18th, I believe, yeah.
Nice to have a calendar in front of us. Okay, so let me get this right. I think, have we agreed as a group that if council would accept a joint meeting with us early on February 9th, that would benefit our list of priorities, I guess you call it?
Correct, so then,
Okay, so that's one topic.
okay. So I know what you're saying, but what we can do is we can throw our list from the previous meeting we have at council of what our priorities are, throw that in there for that meeting.
Yep,
Then we can make changes as
and
we,
embellish it, add to it, absolutely. perfect, so that's February 9th.
That makes things.
Then we're talking about a regular meeting on the 19th, is that?
18th.
18th, that we'll talk with Assistant Manager Bickling. And that's already on an agenda, whatever else we do.
Right.
And conceivably, there'd still be time to get a resolution based on what council tells us on that meeting agenda as well.
Correct.
That's, okay, strike two. Strike three?
So,
We got it.
someone will put out a time on the 9th after the council agrees.
It'll probably be
It'd be
5:30.
5:30.
Typically 5:30, and then that gives them time to go eat. All right? Thank you. I apologize. And this is a segue into our item 3, which is nominate a PACAB chair and vice chair. I'll preface this by saying that you may not know, but at the last council meeting, I announced to council that I would, as things stood, not renew my application for membership with the next, in July. I've been on this board for over 15 years, I believe. It's been one of the high points of my life, and I really do appreciate it. But I think this board and the city deserves some new blood. One of the reasons I think we have 2 empty chairs is because some of our mission has been a little bit clouded. We haven't been quite as, haven't provided as much to the city as we could. And I think if we can renew that, all those things that we've talked about today, from Linda Paquette's sewer out there to the electric department and all the reviews on all the things that we do, those are things that come across this board that have gone away. And I think if we can renew some of our participation, then we'll draw people back to this group, feeling that they have something to offer. So with that, I told council that I would stay until as things stay. I'm leaving the door open for some giant change, but I just assume not be chair again until the end of my term, but we need to nominate a chair and vice chair, and I'll open the floor for nominations.
I'll nominate Chair Drop until the end of his term as chair.
They don't need nominations don't need a second.
So if the way nominations and elections work for boards is per code, correct me, Chris, but per code, if there's only a single nomination, it can be by voice vote or acclamation. If there are 2 nominations, then it goes to a secret ballot.
Were there any other nominations?
Okay.
Any objections to Bruce Jaffa being chair through July?
Okay.
Okay.
So now we'll nominate a vice chair. Or Regis.
Well, I was going to nominate Dwayne again. Huh?
I was gonna nominate.
So that.
Yeah. Because he's vice chair now, and he can go to the end of this term, and then we'll figure it all out in August or September when we come back.
I like it.
Okay, well, thank you all, and after this blowing my preparation, I'm really a little bit embarrassed, but I'll do the best I can. I'll keep promoting this group, because I think, I look back at this, and whenever I do pull a pin, I'm gonna credit the so many wonderful people I've worked with on this board over the years. Some of them still here. And it's just been really, really fun. All right, so information items, reports, reminder of meetings. The next regular meeting is February 18th. We got great reports from the railroad and for the chamber. Remember the events, Valentine's Day, I guess, is coming up next. And other than that, I really appreciate any comments from Phil or Taylor? All right, then board members, closing comments? Board Member Grimm.
I just want to thank everybody for coming. Sounds like the polar bear jump was awesome. I missed it this year and I'm sorry. And I'm looking forward to coming up with a lot of ideas for our future PACAB meetings. That's all I got.
Regis.
Yeah, I want to thank Phil for, his detail, everything. He does a lot of work for each thing, so I didn't want to throw a wrench in it, but I just thought that we should just get that rate study done. That's what I'm thinking, but I'm not the final say. And Chamber, for the polar bear jump this weekend. I didn't go this year because I actually miss it, I miss going. But if I go, then I might be jumping, who knows? But I don't want to jump. We actually had some Harvard folks jump here this year, and I liked the way they had the donation set up. Scanning the code was really nice and easy for that. And the polar bear auction down at Tony's is always a good hit. Lots of people come in for that. Even though the roads are terrible, they still made it to donate and buy things in that auction. So it was pretty good. And the railroad, thanks for the report. And I just know that the project, in my opinion, is right on track. I've been sitting there every day, or except my 2 days off, and watching pull piling. And someday they just go to town, and it's just, it's pretty good. You go there right now, you can see that both sides of the dock are gone for about 150 feet. So they just got to do some, the middle piling, the cross piling.
Wow.
So it's pretty amazing. So be careful, Dwayne will chase you off the north dock, and or not the north dock, but the dirt dock.
Freight dock, yes.
Freight dock. And thanks everybody for coming. Thanks. Yeah.
I'm going to jump back, and if the administration has any comment.
No comment.
Just want to thank Phil for coming out again and your quick presentation. Taylor, you're doing awesome stuff with the department. It's great to have you in town, you and your family. And I look forward to the next couple of years, seeing how this all shakes out. It's very exciting. The polar bear jump was a success. It was a little bit smaller just due to weather, but as Norm touched on, or Board Member Regis, we had 2 Harbor employees jump, and just a quick shout out to Rick. He raised $12,000 for his team.
Wow.
All by himself.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, he really went to town. We're really proud of him.
Okay. Dwayne.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this draft, looking at it, recommending the establishment of a residential heat pump incentive rate. This is great. It's good. It's a win-win. It's good for the utility potentially, and good for consumers. Just thinking out loud and looking at the makeup of this panel, I'm kind of reminded that we don't have anyone really representing the commercial fishing industry here. And I have some questions about some things that have happened lately, particularly with one of the receiving plants. So that's just something I'll throw out there. And thank you, Mr. Kaluza, for the presentations. Very good. That's all I have.
Okay. Well, thank you all for coming. I'm glad we were able to have a quorum. Board Member Sutter, as I said, was not able to attend. That's always going to be the case. It's one of the reasons why we have 7 people and only need a quorum of 4. Fortunately, you guys were able to make it today, and we were able to get through some stuff. The outreach to try to get board members, I think each of us has a responsibility to try to talk to our neighbors or friends. I'm never completely understand why some people are really reluctant to get engaged in public service. Although it's a little scary in a way, but the benefits to the community, most people, even though if they're a little bit hesitant, have a good feeling about their community and they want to help. So I would encourage you to talk to anybody you know in the commercial fishing industry, and you're right. We had Laura Snyder and Carl Hughes and a number of people over the years that had direct understanding of the fisheries, and we don't And we actually have a fairly broad base today, from labor to finance and industry. I think that's important to keep. That's one of the benefits of this board. And when council accepts and appoints people, they really want the opportunity to appoint people who have a perspective, not necessarily an axe to grind, but have something, experience in the community or connection to the community that they can tend to speak for and represent. I would point to I think it was on Facebook, but I'm not exactly sure, but our city manager, Sorensen, was with Senator Sullivan in a very exciting presentation. Of course, he's campaigning. He's a fellow Buckeye. I enjoy his enthusiasm, but he really does talk about the benefits that can come to Seward. It's not accidental. It's all built on the work that other people have done last year and the year before and the year before. It's the work that we're trying to do for next year and the year after. But to see what some of the industry and some of the opportunities in Seward are today, the housing, I did go back through a whole lot of stuff this last month. And, we talked at this group, at this level, about electric sales, about housing, we had different realtors and different builders come in and talk to us. There's a lot of things that this board can do. And to reach out to the community and let them know that we're here. I don't know how else to frame it. There isn't anybody like the Chamber of Commerce going out and dragging people in. And it's got to be people somewhere along in their career that have a little bit extra time, not just changing diapers and stuff. So it's not for everybody, but it's good. Thank you, Tony and Kristen.
Yeah.
I don't know why I do that.
It's okay.
And Chris, and of course Phil and Taylor. Other than that, motion to adjourn, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All right. We're adjourned.